Hi, everybody. This is Silvio Canto in Dallas, Texas on Monday, April the 13th. Monday, that means we'll be chatting with our good friend Bill Katz, the editor of Urgent Agenda. Bill, I always ask you, how are things going? Well, let me ask you, how are things going? How is the wonderful city of New York? We'll be talking about your mayor later on in our segment.
Well, the city of New York seems to be in pretty bad shape.
Yeah,
As far as other things go, before the broadcast, said that both of us were optimistic,
I
and
am.
I feel I feel optimistic too. I think that our military has done a marvelous job, an absolutely marvelous
Yeah,
job
they have.
in Iran, and I think that what the Iranians were crazy to turn down our offer, which included a great deal of security for them. But now we're going into a new phase, but I'm optimistic that we will win this new phase.
Yeah. Well, let me before we get to Iran, because I'm going to break up the conversation about Iran into three parts: the blockade, the Straits of Hormuz, which is really another issue altogether, and because we're not really blockading the Straits of Hormuz, we're
No,
blockading Iranian ports, which is different.
that's right.
And then we want to talk about NATO and the Royal Navy. But let me begin. 81 years ago, a lot of Americans were sort of discovering that the president they had known for a long time, President Roosevelt, had passed away. Now,
Yes,
people who were familiar with the situation, as they like to say, they kind of knew that he was pretty sick, but maybe a lot of Americans didn't. I don't know for sure. But you had this, as they say, transfer of power from a real powerhouse, President Roosevelt, the man who had won 4 elections, and to this not that well known man from Missouri, Vice President Truman. And I mean, to me, I mean, the loss of FDR must have been a shock, not just in the sense that he was the president, but for many people, he was the only one they knew.
yes.
12 years is a long time to be
I
president.
remember the day. I'm not as young as you think I am, but I remember.
Well, I don't remember that day, so I'll leave it up
Yes.
to you, that one.
Well, I'll tell you. I will tell you some wonderful stories about that day.
Yeah,
I was sitting. I was a young kid, of course,
yeah.
but I was sitting with my mother in the kitchen of our apartment in Brooklyn, and the phone rang, and it appeared my mother had a strange look on her face, and she said, "Al," which means was her brother. "I think my fingers just fell off."
Hmm.
And what he was telling her was that President Roosevelt had just died, and to most Americans, he was, as at least as adults, the only president they ever knew. And for people like my parents, who are children of immigrants, he was in many respects a deeply respected figure. He was the one who was leading us through the
Right.
World War, and my mother had the same feeling other people had. What do we do now?
Yeah, I mean, he's been president for 12 years,
Hmm.
which means that many people went through high school, even college, only knowing him, let's say.
Yes.
So yeah, it is. Now we go 8 years as president, and I know that, like my sons, for example, were born when Reagan was, but one of them was born during the first Bush, and the other two were born during Reagan, and I often talk to them about that, what it was like to live at that time, and all of that. So we do tend to associate our life with whoever the president
Oh,
is. It's
absolutely.
inevitable. But I still find the story, to me, as amazing as the loss of FDR was, and it was a big loss. But to me, Bill, the most amazing part of the story is the guy who steps up to the plate, Harry Truman,
Yes.
who most Americans didn't even know, or I mean, they may have known the name, but had they didn't do press conferences and stuff back then. So for most Americans, it was like, Harry, who? Who is this
Mm.
guy? Can he do the job? And there must have been a lot of concern in the country that a man like this was walking into a war in Europe, a war in Japan, the country at war. I mean, I think, to make a long story short, I think Harry Truman really rose to the occasion
Very much so.
and hit the ball out of the park as far as I'm concerned.
he was far more important in Washington than he was in the nation generally. He was highly respected. His picture was on the front page of Time magazine in World War II, which was quite a place to be for a quote an unknown. But he was the head of the Truman Committee during World War II, which investigated wartime corruption. And that was a tough assignment, and he handled it very, very well. The people who knew him in Washington had great faith in him, and they believed and they chose him to be vice president. The assignment was handed over to the leaders of Congress by President Roosevelt, who approved of it. You find the best vice president. Roosevelt basically knew, I think, that he was fading away, and they found a guy who seemed to take on assignments and handle them brilliantly. He was a man who came from Missouri. He was called the little man from Missouri. He was not the little man. He was the big man from Missouri, and he had taken on assignments all his life and made them work.
Right. No, he was really, it's an amazing story. I mean, when you think of everything that he had to deal with, just in 1945 alone, I mean,
Right.
he becomes president April 12th, 13th, and within a month, Germany surrenders. You have to deal with that, with the recovery of Europe, and then what? 4 months later, 5 months later, Japan surrenders.
Yes,
and in between, you got to drop a couple of atomic bombs. That's a lot of work.
He did not know about the atomic bomb
Yes.
when he became vice president. Roosevelt did not want to tell him. I think he wanted to keep it so secret, and then he was told once he became president and was sworn. He was told by the people around President Roosevelt that we have this new weapon
Mhm.
that is being developed, and that's when he knew that the world was going to change.
Right. And that I don't know whether he realized that he would be the one, making that call,
Yes.
but I'm glad he was, because I think he understood, he understood how serious things were. And in my opinion, he rose to the occasion.
If people who are listening want to go back and see something very interesting, to watch the new president, Harry Truman, announcing to the country that we had just used something called an atomic bomb, and just how brilliant he was at explaining it to the country of what this can do, and as tough as nails, saying we will continue to use it until we completely destroy Japan's power to make war. And
Right.
we knew we were dealing with a winner.
That's right. And in fact, that video is available on YouTube if anybody
Yes, it is.
wants to see it, because that's how I saw it. So no, I think it's really remarkable that now he didn't have, as you know, Bill, he didn't have a very easy, not technically re-election, but he had a very tough time in 1948. And his second term, technically his first term, but whatever, the second time around, that was tough because of Korea. You had economic problems. And, like when he left the White House, he wasn't that popular.
No, not
But
at all.
this is a man who, in my opinion, he rose to the occasion.
He did. He did.
Yeah.
He never gained the popularity that Roosevelt had.
Sure.
He had a temper. He had a couple of things about him that a lot of people didn't like. But as you said, he rose to the occasion. And
Sure
he
did.
rose to the occasion, and I'll give you just a story. He was determined that we had to rebuild Europe
Mm-hmm.
because we were a Western country. Europe was one of the centers of our civilization. And he came up with something that was called inside the administration, the Truman Plan. And he was told getting this through Congress is going to be difficult. They're not interested in spending some money. And he said, how do we get it through Congress? How do we make it work? And he said, well, if some famous American came forward and endorsed it, and he said, let's do it. Instead of calling it the Truman Plan, let's call it the Marshall Plan, because George Marshall was so respected. And he gave up his name on the plan. He called it the Marshall Plan.
Wow.
That's big thinking. That's big thing.
That's a big man right there. The other favorite story of mine is when he found out that President Roosevelt had died, and they rushed him over to the White House, and is apparently running up the escalator or whatever.
Yeah.
And he gets to the door, and Mrs. Roosevelt greets him, and he goes. I mean, obviously she tells him that the president had died, and he said, "Well, Mrs. Roosevelt, how can we help you?" And she said, "Harry, how can we help you?"
Yes, and she says, you're the one in trouble now.
That's right. That's
Yes,
right.
he was not told the president was dead when he was
Right.
called to an emergency meeting at the White House,
Right.
and to come immediately. And she did greet him and say, "Harry, the president is dead. You are the new president of the United States." And yes, he said, "Well, Eleanor, how can we help you?" And he said, "How can we help you?"
That's right. I mean, what an amazing, just to think about what it must have been like for him to go to bed that night.
Yes.
I mean, in that situation. Well, great man, FDR, and equally great man, Harry Truman. Well, let's come to the present right now, because we've got a very interesting situation with Iran. There's a blockade. And I have to tell you, Bill, I'm very optimistic about the blockade because I think it's a brilliant move.
Yes.
What President Trump has done is that he will literally choke off Iran and deny them whatever dollars they were getting. I think it's a brilliant move. And Iran doesn't really have a lot of choices. And I don't think there's anybody out there who's going to be, messing up with that amazing military presence we have in the region. So I don't think anybody's going to be messing with those American ships. So we will have a blockade here. And I think it's going to work out. I'm optimistic that Iran will either collapse from within or break. And some of these leaders will call, will say uncle, as they like to say, and call President Trump and say, okay, we'll cut a deal. Because I think Trump is serious about what he's going to do to Iran.
Absolutely.
I don't think this is no joke.
He is not a man you joke with. He offered a very good deal to the Iranians, but they did not accept it. And it was Vance who said this is going to be much rougher on the Iranians than they think. They're dealing with President Trump.
That's right. Now, the other part of the plan, I guess, is the Straits of Hormuz. And that's where I think the brilliant U.S. Navy is going to come in. Because I think what they're going to do, this is just a guess of mine, Bill, but I think what they're going to do is they're going to concentrate on opening a couple of lanes in the straits so that ships can start going through. It's sort of like when you're on the highway and there's an accident and the police opens up one lane so that the traffic can keep on. So I think that's what's going to happen. They're going to open up at least a couple of lanes and let the traffic go through, which is, it's going to ease up the oil prices a lot. And then they'll do the rest of the straits. But I just think that the performance of the U.S. Navy is going to be, I mean, everybody who has ever worn the U.S. Navy uniform or has a relative is going to be so proud of the job these guys are going to do, Bill.
It's the finest Navy in the world. At one time, it was regarded as the junior service, and the British Navy was called the senior service because the Royal Navy at one time was the queen of the seas. Sadly, not anymore.
No.
But now it's the United States Navy, and they are incredibly capable.
They are, and the British Navy. I made the point over the weekend that if Argentina, and they're not talking about doing this. I'm just, creating, speculating. But if Argentina were to do today what it did back in '82 when they went into what they call Malvinas, the Falklands, England, the UK couldn't defend Falklands today. They couldn't send the number of ships, and they couldn't do today what they did 40 years ago. They simply couldn't. They would have to literally give up the Falklands. I'm pretty sure that would happen, Bill.
Well, yes. I mean, Britain has been, except for a brief period with Margaret Thatcher as prime minister, Britain has just been declining and declining and declining. And it's the same old story. They made mistakes they shouldn't have made, like just opening the country to immigrants who clearly had no interest in being British. They had interest in taking their culture into Britain and converting Britain. And then the cutting of their national defense, their not having the kind of weapons available to them that a great nation should have. Very sad, very sad. And I think that they are going to look back on this period as one of continued national decline. It's sad.
It really is sad. I wonder what King William thinks of all of this, because he served in Afghanistan, and I'm sure he must have been brought up in the whole idea of the great British Army.
Yes.
And he's going to be king probably. I don't know when, but probably in the next 10 years he could be the king of England.
Yes.
And I wonder what he thinks about this. Whether he would say, "Hey, we got to rebuild." But it's not just the Royal Navy, Bill. There's a story that came out, I guess, a few days ago, that a general in the UK Armed Forces went before a committee, and he couldn't even persuade or confirm that the UK could come up with 1,000 troops to fight in Europe. So I mean,
Yes.
so it's an absolute. And that's the UK. They were the best, the strongest one. I mean, I don't even want to talk about the others. I mean, the others must be a joke.
Yes.
But anyway, what a sad thing how a country is allowed to deteriorate like that. It's sad.
Yes,
really
and to humiliate itself.
That's it. That's the other part.
They're
Yeah.
humiliated. I mean, now people think of Britain as a sad case. It wasn't at one time. Under Margaret Thatcher, it became almost great again, and we look back upon her with great affection. But right now, I think that especially because President Trump has basically humiliated them and basically said, how sad this is.
Mm-hmm. That is. Now, I understand, because the story changes a lot, but I understand that the UK and France have agreed to send some minesweepers. I don't know if that's true. I heard that.
Yeah.
That would be a big plus if they did that. Because I think what's at play here, Bill, is American public opinion. This is the part they don't get. I've seen all these people posting and criticizing the United States, and I think these people need to consider that the American voter is watching all of this.
Yes.
And they're going, my gosh, we've been paying billions of dollars to defend these people.
That's right.
And
when we needed them, they weren't there.
Yeah, when the bell rings, they're telling us we can't use their airports. First of all, those are not free airports. We've paid for those bases.
That's right.
I mean, it's not like we just took a piece of land and turned it into a base. We pay rent on those bases. And those bases are not only, Bill, of military value, but they're of economic value for these communities where those bases are.
Absolutely. Well, this will shake itself out in some way. I mean, I don't know how long the war will last. I think it'll last longer than we anticipated it lasting. But I think we will come out victorious because Donald Trump does not accept any other answer.
Right. No, I think you're right. And I'm optimistic for those two reasons. One is Trump will win. That's just his nature. And the other thing is that the American military is just remarkable.
Yes.
And, I was listening to a Democrat saying, well, the Chinese are watching this and they just saw one of our F-16s get shot down or something. And I said, well, that may be true that they're watching that, but they're also probably watching how wonderful American weapons are.
Yes.
And how they outperform the Chinese weapons they sold Iran.
That's right. That's right. And also in a period of I think about a month, we lost one plane.
That's right.
One plane. I mean, and the others were behaving and maneuvering spectacularly. Our Air Force is magnificent. They have done a great job of reducing with naval aircraft as well, reducing the Iranian forces to a minor position of compared to what they used to have.
Yeah, I mean I think Trump is right. I don't think they have a lot.
No.
No, I don't think there's a lot of fighting left in those forces. But we will see. I'm actually optimistic how this is going to end.
Yes.
If we can get the straits open this month, the month of April, then I think you'll start seeing the price of oil drop quickly again, and hopefully by July 4th, gasoline will be back to where it was. I think that's doable.
Yes.
And as far as what happens in Iran, I mean, I don't know. I mean, let them figure it out. But I have a funny feeling that if, like you said at the beginning, Bill, if I was one of the leaders of Iran, I'd be looking to get out of the
Oh yeah,
country.
very much so. And we offered them that chance that
Wow.
the individuals with whom we were negotiating would be able to escape or be protected by us, probably going to some other country or some other place in the Arab world, whatever. And I looked at the terms that we were offering. Certainly, they weren't terms that Iran would like. They can't be. I mean, they lost, but they were terms that were reasonable, and they were thoughtful, and they looked toward the future. And they still turned it down.
Yeah,
Bad move on their part.
it was. I think they should remember what happened to Maduro when he turned down an offer to leave the country.
Yes.
Maduro was offered more than once an opportunity to leave, and he said, "Nah, I'm going to stay. I'm going to fight this out." Well, he's not doing very well right now. He's in a prison in New
No.
Jersey or something. Yeah.
Yeah.
But anyway, of course, the next point I want to ask you, Bill, is about the Democrats' reaction to all of this, which, with the exception of Senator Fetterman, it's all the same. You know, Trump got us into this irresponsible war,
Illegal war.
war.
Yes.
You know, my favorite line of all the ones I heard, and I've heard many, is that, gosh, 30, 45 days ago, the straits were open.
Yes, yes. And the crazy government was in power, and we were beating the daylights out of them.
Right. And, you know, yeah, 35, the straits were open 30 or 45 days ago, but they were also getting closer to a bomb.
Yes.
And you know, people, I think someone said, if you think $4 gasoline is expensive, wait until Iran has a nuclear weapon.
Yes, that's true.
But I mean, they said, well, you know, the straits were fine. Oh, the other one I love, Bill, is, well, the Iran nuclear deal signed by President Obama was doing the job. Well, Bill, I have two questions of those people.
Yes.
Number one is, if the Iran nuclear deal was working so well, why did they have these missiles that could fly 2,500 miles?
Exactly right. Exactly. And missiles soon to come that
Right.
will fly to the United States.
Yes, and
You know,
I mean,
why would they need that if everything was working so well?
if the plan was so good, the Obama nuclear deal was so great, I thought we were supposed to. And by the way, they lied to us. They said they didn't have those.
Yes, that's correct. Absolutely. Well, look, the Iran nuclear deal. People forget that the president wanted to submit this as a treaty,
Right.
which would make it law throughout the United States. He couldn't even get the votes to approve the deal itself in Congress. It was extremely unpopular, especially among Republicans, but many Democrats as well, saying this doesn't guarantee us anything.
Right, including Senator Schumer, by the way, who voted against it.
Yes, that's exactly right. They had to do it as an executive agreement, which means that it expires when the term of that president expires, and it is simply incredible. We found out that as you made the point, that their long-range missiles were longer range than we thought.
That's right.
And we also found out that they were very close to a situation where they might be able to produce a nuclear bomb within a few weeks. And the president looked at these things and felt we had to act, and we had to act immediately.
Well, you also had the situation, Bill, where under the Obama nuclear plan, they were building these underground facilities where they were building these weapons. So, I mean, I guess the Obama nuclear deal didn't cover anything underground because
Yeah,
they because these people were violating that. I mean,
of
they
course
were
they were.
literally, yeah. So, I mean, they had this great underground business going on there somewhere in Iran where they had a big facility going, building these weapons underground. Nobody could see it, but we found out that they had them. And that's the Obama nuclear deal.
Yes, exactly. And I suspect that the intelligence coming into the United States was rather discouraging, but he just kind of lived with it. This was my deal. This is
Right.
I'm the nuclear deal guy.
That's
Now, of
right.
course, it has a few little problems with it, but I'm still the nuclear deal guy.
That's right. Nobody will ask me a tough question. So,
No,
but, I mean, it's just ridiculous that Obama nuclear deal. But I think the fact that he couldn't get a treaty out of it and
yes,
make it a legitimate law, I think that tells you everything right there. Well, I don't know what's going to happen with the Democrats. They may capitalize on all of this because of the gas prices to win the House, and they may do that.
yes,
Um, but and then I have no idea what it's not going to stop Trump, but
no.
it's just going to make our politics more insane
Yes,
and more
yes.
partisan.
I think that I don't think that they'll capture the Senate, the
No,
Democrats, and I think that in a way the Republicans might save them from that curse. They though are a party that does not seem to have any link with the country.
no,
I mean, they don't seem to care about the safety of their country. All they want to do is get Trump. We're going
that's
to
it.
get Trump. That is their reason for being. And this illegal war, this immoral war. We had an agreement with Iran. This is beyond the president's power, and we're going to make sure the American people know that. And get Trump. Just get Trump. And this apparently is their entire platform.
That's it. That's
Get
their
Trump.
entire platform. Let's get Trump. Let's hope that they don't succeed. If the Republicans can keep the Senate, then that that's okay with me because you stop all this nonsense when it goes to the Senate. But I just saw a poll today, Bill. Yeah, everybody's talking about polls these days that actually has the margin, the so-called generic vote, 44-42 Democrats. That
Mm.
doesn't sound like a blue wave to me.
No, it doesn't. No, I think that if the administration can continue its word offensive, explaining to the people why we are doing that and why it could be dangerous to your children and your grandchildren if we don't do that. If they can continue that line and bring home what is expected to be a real victory, I think they may just embarrass the Democrats enough to squeeze by in the midterms.
Yeah, I think so. And Bill, you remember the Gulf War, how that went,
Sure.
the first Gulf War. There were all kinds of predictions about 50,000 bodies coming back, and it was going to be this horrible mess that Bush was getting us into, and all of that. And then all of these presidential candidates were saying that the war was same language, almost the same language, illegal, immoral. And then victory happens. Bush is at 90%. And there's only one candidate who came out of this okay, and that was Bill Clinton,
Yes.
who supported the war.
Yes.
And he
It
didn't have
gave
to.
him a kind of protection.
Yeah, it did, because they couldn't accuse him of being soft on on national security. So anyway, one last topic, Bill, I want to bring up. I just noticed that your mayor was celebrating 100 days in office.
Yes,
And
it's the mayor of the nearby city. I
yeah,
don't live in that city, but it's the mayor of the nearby city.
well, that's right. But here's the thing. I thought only FDR did 100 days. I guess
Uh,
Mamdani is doing it now.
he's doing his 100-day march and explaining to people how much they've accomplished
That's right.
in the 100 days. Now, nobody else seems to find these accomplishments. I mean, they're looking very hard, but it's still his 100 days, and he is praising his wonderful wife, who is a real hard line Israel hater and Jew hater, but he says she's not an official. She's not an official, and he's going to talk about all his accomplishments, which do not seem as vivid to the public as they do to him.
Right. Well, one of the accomplishments, Bill, is that he didn't get the free bus rides, right?
That's right.
Yeah, that didn't go down well in Albany.
No.
Apparently, the folks down there said, "You know what? This is not a good idea, Mamdani. You better dump this one."
Well, he is remarkably unpopular with most people, but he has his followers, and I don't think. Look, he's elected. He's elected. It's very hard to remove a New York City mayor. Very, very hard to remove a New York City mayor. We're going to have him for a while, but I really do think he's headed for a tremendous failure because he hasn't got the slightest idea how a city government is run.
That's well, especially one that big.
Yes,
I mean, you're talking about a city. I mean, I've read that if New York City was a state, it would be like the 8th largest state or something. I mean, it's a huge.
Oh yes, it's a huge city. It has 8 million people. It has a functioning government in certain respects, but it also has the new mayor, and he's not functioning.
No. Now, one last thing about the mayor. Apparently, some people were calling on the police commissioner to resign after some remarks that the mayor made about this instant crime or something that happened there. Did any of that happen, or was it just a rumor going around?
Oh, I think that he made a comment that was an inappropriate comment about her, that he can fire her, or that he outranks her. Well, in a technical sense, yes, but she is an immensely popular police commissioner from a very, very prominent family, and she's got the police at her back.
Right.
They like her, and he doesn't have people like
that.
No. He has a couple of people in the Bronx,
right.
and he a
couple of social workers.
Social workers. He wants to reduce the level of the police. He wants to have more social workers who will be the first to an event, and the police commissioner doesn't like that one bit. And
well, go ahead. I'm sorry, please.
No, she's more popular than he is, and her family can buy New York City anytime.
Well, I got to get a kick out of the social workers part, because I've been to Yankee Stadium a couple of times in my life, and there's some fights that break out at Yankee Stadium that are pretty mean.
Yes.
And when those fights broke out when I was there, the police came to break them up. I don't think social workers would have done a good job breaking up a couple of fights at a Yankee game.
No, they wouldn't. They'd have come and said, "Now you boys must stop this, and we will send you some social worker help to explore your problems."
Right.
You.
They would have beaten the crap out of the social workers.
Well, yes.
At any rate. Yeah, in any way. But I mean, yeah, he's an interesting character, to say the least. And I think what will eventually get him is reality.
Yes, he will, but he may not accept reality. He may try to force through things with the help of his wonderful wife, who is still trying to explain away her comments about Jews and others. But I think, look, he's the elected mayor. He will serve his term as mayor.
Right.
I don't know if he can make it to a second term, but you never know in New York City.
You never know unless Mario Cuomo decides, or not Mario, but Andrew Cuomo decides to run against them and spoil it by running again. I mean, but you never know. Yeah. Well, Bill, I want to thank you as always for your time. We're going to have to keep an eye on on this situation in Iran with the blockade and all of that, but I actually feel pretty optimistic about this. And
So do I.
I'm not saying there are going to be some problems. I'm not naive, but I'm optimistic because I don't think Trump will let it fail, and the Navy will rise to the occasion, Bill.
It will. It will. I'm optimistic with you.
Yeah.
Talk to you soon.
All right. Well, Bill, thank you so much for your time, and we'll chat again next week. All right. Our good friend, Bill Katz, the editor of Urgent Agenda, always chat with him. Well, we like to chat with him at least once a week. May have to bring him back more often because these problems in Iran, we may have to schedule a couple of special shows. But once a week, we always enjoy chatting with him. And a little conversation we had about FDR. I hope you really enjoyed it because, yeah, I mean, the death of FDR 81 years ago and then Harry Truman becoming president, what an amazing moment that was. And to say the least, Harry Truman really rose to the occasion. Well, thank you for listening. This is Silvio Canto in Dallas, and we'll talk to you later. Bye-bye, everybody.